It's such a rare world where I will say to you, oh, did you hear? And you're like, no, I didn't hear that. No, I just saw it 2 minutes ago on my phone.
And it must be true.
And it must be true because it's on the phone.
It's a given.
Yeah, it's true. It is kind of an exciting world we're living in, but it's also a strange world to know that everything is going here. There are other people who I listen to with Zig Ziglar, which is Zig, hilarious. Zig, you can't hit a target that you're not aiming at. And, you could beat the greatest archer in the world if you put a blindfold on him. That one. And Zig, or do you want to go to the Bahamas tomorrow morning at 8:45? You can find a way. Oh, ship of the future. Ship of the future. Oh, don't start with that, because I'm a honeymooner freak and an odd couple.
Me too. In fact, I'm putting that clip in this video. Hi, I'm Steve from LifeMasteryPodcast.com, and I'm here with Dick Brennan. Dick is an anchorman for CBS News. Hey, Dick, how's it going?
I'm glad to be here, yeah. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Dick.
I work at WCBS, Channel 2 here in New York City. I anchor also on their sister station, which is WLNY. And then we now have a new digital channel, so we are literally on 24/7, which is kind of funny, but we actually are. I'm not kidding. I mean, literally, I'm here, but I'm somewhere else, too. Well, it is amazing. Through the magic of television. Remember those infomercials?
Yes.
Or that's actually Ralph Cramden, remember?
Yes.
And can I Corey Apple? Oh, ship of the future. Ship of the future. Oh, don't start with that, because I'm a honeymooner freak and an odd couple.
Me too. In fact, I'm putting that clip in this video.
I will call the apple the old-fashioned way and see how slow it takes me. And then you will call it the modern way, and zip, we'll see how fast it is. Ha, ha. There, I am through. I will now do it the modern way. Zip. It's zip. It's zipping the modern way.
No, and you know what's funny is that those shows are timeless, and this is an absolutely true story. Yesterday, I'm in my office, and I'm trying to find a speech of Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend. And I'm clicking, and there's 1,700 channels, and John Elliott, one of our weather guys, is with me, too. And we're clicking, and we can't find the Buttigieg, which I was just watching, but we did find My Dream of Jeannie.
Another favorite of mine.
It's a 1966 episode where it's the same principle. I mean, Major Nelson and Major Healy are supposed to be orbiting in space, but Jeannie blinked them back on the Earth. Yeah. And Dr. Bellow's wife saw them and keeps telling everybody, Major Nelson's not in space. And it's hilarious. And it's timeless. And I'm saying, some comedies, you look at them, they get a little dated. Sure. This stuff was just gold. Incredible. Although I understand that you never actually see her belly. Somebody told me that.
Yes, I heard that as well.
The
belly button was not allowed.
Which is comical, because they have all these double entendres, and yet you can't do this.
Can we just begin with something? I mean, I can't believe I was actually doing research on your belly button, that this was a thing many years ago.
It's funny, we were talking about the old Star Trek episodes. He couldn't say hell on the air.
Really?
And there is a famous episode where Captain Kirk actually goes, he doesn't say go to hell, he says, go to the devil. I'm not kidding. I'm like, what? I didn't know what that meant for years. And then someone explained to me in 1967 you couldn't say hell on television. And now, it is amazing. Anyway,
now you're lucky.
Boy, did we digress. And the whole idea of the digital world is that we all have our phones, and you're getting the news now. You don't have to wait to see me on the 6 o'clock news. And we want to have the idea that you can pick up your phone and literally get a live broadcast of our news. The world we're in now, nobody wants to wait 4 hours. They already know what's on television.
So you want to predict the future.
Yeah, well, we'd love to.
It's just not quick enough for us.
No, we don't know what happened an hour ago. I mean,
we need to know what's going to happen.
It's such a rare world where I will say to you, oh, did you hear? And you're like, no, I didn't hear that. No, I just saw it 2 minutes ago on my phone.
And it must be true.
And it must be true because it's on the phone.
It's a given.
Yeah, it's true. It is kind of an exciting world we're living in, but it's also a strange world to know that everything is going here. I mean, everything is going here, and it is incredible what you can do with this phone and how you can go and shoot a story with this phone. Yes, unbelievable.
So I understand you're really big into personal development. Well, what's your definition of success? Just so we can frame this.
My definition of success is kind of odd. It's someone who goes forward. Here's an odd quote. William F. Buckley Jr., who was the conservative of years and years and died recently, and the Times did a great obit on him. And he was asked his philosophy of life, and what he said, and it was so simple and yet different, he just said, forward, always forward. I think you can dwell in the past, but it
reflect.
doesn't do you any good. I worked for this guy, Barry Farber, when I was very young. He worked at WMCA Radio in New York, one of my first jobs. And he was a radio host. And he used to say, don't be happy, be useful. It's true.
That's great.
And it's great because it's like, if you spend your whole day thinking, am I happy, I'm not happy? No, just go out and do. Move, be active, and then somehow all that other stuff doesn't matter. But I also think you need to have a strategy. You know, we talk about Tony Robbins and other guys like him who always say, you know, if you can come up with a strategy, but you have to have the motivation behind the strategy. There are a million strategies, but they all kind of actually work. I mean, you know, there are a million diets. They'll work, but you got to have the motivation behind the diet.
And you have to put it into effect, right? I mean, knowledge is really it's wasted if it's not put into action.
What is interesting is we were talking about timeless comedies before on television. There's timeless knowledge too. I mean, even Tony Robbins will always say, you know, his work is built on somebody else's work. I remember when I grew up, we were in, I guess it was grammar school. We used to do a joke based on Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie's books, How to Win Friends and Influence People, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Okay, and I remember in grammar school, I'd say to my friend, Adam, hello, Adam. How are you, Adam? Because one of his chapters was
use the name.
The man's the favorite name, that probably said the man, the favorite word in the English language is somebody's name. And so we used to do that shtick all the time, and I still hear people doing that. Hi, Dick. Nice to meet you, Dick. I'm like, oh, this guy read Dale Carnegie.
Is that what you think, or do you feel more connected to the person?
No, you do. I mean, I think when someone says your name, but I always think of the gimmick part of it. I know. But Dale,
and I do too sometimes.
But then, you know, then I think I remember graduating. I mean, the 70s, Wayne Dyer hit it big in like 75, 76, Erroneous Zones.
Yes,
when he was... Now, Wayne, we remember, was real in your face back then. He didn't... If you say Wayne Dyer now, you'd be like, oh, spiritual Wayne. You know, Wayne with the butterflies.
Yeah,
the butterfly landed on my hand.
Yes.
But back then... He was in your face. He was on Johnny Carson all the time.
Yes, I know.
I mean...
His character evolved over the years greatly.
I remember his advice, you know, basically at the time, don't ever go to your relatives' birthday parties. Screw them. He basically used to, yeah, more or less, he would say that. Yeah. But then later on, he'd say, well, now when I go, and I love them, even when they're idiots, I love them. And I'm like, oh, yeah, really? I mean, it's funny. But now, Wayne has died, which is too bad, because I really enjoyed.
Me too.
When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
You met Wayne Dyer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I went to one of his seminars. I was sitting in the front row.
Wow.
I got to meet him. It was
That's
great.
incredible.
I met him, Barbara DeAngelis.
If you just say to yourself, what's the highest thought about this, or what's the highest choice, you will shift in that moment, and you will make less mistakes. You'll be more in alignment with your own power. You'll be in alignment with your own highest. You'll achieve so many beautiful results on the outside because you've chosen to, in a sense, go to the highest on the inside.
It's funny you mentioned about meeting people. My wife works at the magazine show Extra, you know, the entertainment show. So my wife meets everybody. I always joke, like, she goes and covers, you know, Tom Cruise, the Kardashians, and Justin Bieber, and I cover de Blasio, okay? So who's got the more fun job? I don't know. I think so. But
you
anyway,
do all this personal development, and does she?
No, not at all.
No,
Zero.
God.
Never.
We got to change the whole context
No,
of
but
this meeting.
that's another point about certain people that I wanted to get. But this perfect example of my wife, who I love dearly. She does this. She's like, you like Tony Robbins, right? I'm like, yeah, I like coolest guy ever. She goes, oh, you know, he was in the office this morning, and I was thinking about calling and saying, come over and meet him. I'm like, what? And she's like, but you know, you're across town, you wouldn't have time. I said, the next time Tony Robbins is like...
Has your wife ever met you?
Yeah, I know. No, but I understand her because she's very casual about all this. She meets all these people go in and out of her life, and this is just some guest they're having on the show.
It's just another day for her.
And you know, I get it. And you know, some people. My wife, not only is she not in personal development, she doesn't need it. There are people.
I know.
She will paint a room and not have a headset on. I'm like, why don't you have a headset on? And she's like, well, what do I need it for? I'm like, well, what are you thinking about? And she goes, all the work I have to do. I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean,
for us, it's downtime. You're going to be shoving.
Yeah, right. Oh, we could be 12 podcasts, 3 books, and you know, and you go back to that. I think I signed up for audiobooks before anybody. Oh, yeah. I mean, I was listening to the cassettes, which I guess would be the first brand in the old Sony Walkman.
I had Tony's first
right,
Personal Power.
Personal Power
On cassette.
After Tony, I didn't really graduate to anyone, but then there were other people who I listened to with Zig Ziglar, which is
love
Zig,
Zig.
hilarious.
Zig is fine.
Zig, you can't hit a target that you're not aiming at. And, you could beat the greatest archer in the world if you put a blindfold on him. That one. And Zig, or do you want to go to the Bahamas tomorrow morning at 8:45? You can find a way. The other one I get a kick out of, and I actually still listen to from time to time, is Brian Tracy, who has, goals with Brian Tracy. But he talks, he is the most
I know.
Do you know that Harvard did a study that the 3% who had their goals made more money than the 97% who didn't?
Well, we listen.
I know.
He's got something.
He's got great content. He
does.
really has amazing content.
His delivery is a little.
Oh, it's a little, but you can still
modulate the voice a little bit.
Oh my God! He's got
and take off the suit.
and he's been
right. I think it's the same suit.
It is the same suit.
Oh, he's got a whole closet full of suits.
He's been around a long time. I didn't realize. I saw him on a more recent
I love
podcast.
him.
No, but it's all good information, and you just keep looking. And then you get back to people like my wife. She doesn't need that. Are we kind of just addicted to this stuff? Do we really need it? I often wonder. Because we always seem to be going, we keep having to get the next best thing, like the next diet. Like Tony always talks about, there's always a diet. You can always have one, but why do we always need it?
Yeah, if you're going to have an addiction, it's a great addiction. I think this is where I draw the line at 56 years old after doing this since I was 18 years old.
Right.
I mean, literally,
Really?
I've had earphones stuck in my head.
That's true.
I mean, I used to be out videotaping weddings, and I'd have headphones on listening to audio.
Oh, you were?
programs.
And they just thought you were doing the wedding.
I shit you not.
That's great.
In the car, and then what I realized was I never allowed myself any quiet time, and because even when there is quiet time, your brain's thinking about the future or thinking about the past.
That's right.
You're so in tune to that. So what I realized, I was pretty much a personal development junkie, in a sense, and I didn't allow that time to really be in the moment. I was always planning for the future, or thinking about the past, what I should have said, what I should have done, what did happen, what what I mean. So I'm trying to find that. Right now, like being here with you right now, I'm not thinking about anything else. This is a great moment. There's nothing else distracting me.
Yeah, that's a great point you just made as I hit the microphone. There are fewer and fewer times that you find yourself in the moment. And one of them, which was a few years ago, my daughters, we were going skiing. They took up snowboarding. And I said, okay, do I want to do this? I love skiing. I'm not, but I took it up. And I found that I couldn't believe how much in the moment I was, because all I could think about, don't lean, come, the knees go here. And I spent a whole day literally in the moment. It was such a great feeling. And then I also said to myself, when was the last time you learned anything? I mean, really learned, like going to school or a language or anything. And just that process in and of itself puts you right back into the moment.
Yes.
I love that action of just being in the moment.
Right.
On the other hand, I got to be honest with you, my wife, she wanted us to get into meditation, and she's very good at it. She can do it.
Take it as well.
Yeah, well, and everyone loves it. And I got to admit, I don't.
You look like you'd fall asleep.
I mean, I don't know whether I'm meditating or really napping, and I have to be fair because I just haven't done it right, and I got to work on that because she can do it, and I don't know how she does it, but I would imagine that gets you in the moment.
Yeah. Well, there's a few ways you can get yourself in the moment. I mean, if you really want to try. You seem to be like me in a lot of ways, a little bit type A.
I think we all are. Yeah.
So one of the ways is you just take a moment, you just take a deep breath. We used to breathing shallow, and we gotta get things done. Or walking a little bit slower, or you walk out to the car, you just walk a tiny bit slower. When you grab the handle or whatever you do, just stop for a second. When you get in the car, before you hit the button, because no one's got keys these days, you just stop for a second. Anytime we break the pattern, we're in the moment. It may not be a great moment. That's the moment that's presenting itself to us, not the one that's in our mind. Like, I got to be here. We're always going somewhere in our minds.
No, it's true.
And then when we get there, we're never there because we're going to the next place.
No way to happiness. Happiness is the way. It's about the journey.
And it's really not bullshit. It's just so hard to implement. I'm telling you, it's a struggle for me.
Well, I think it's a struggle for everyone, but I wonder if people like you and me who spend their time listening to these tapes all the time probably engage in it too much. In other words, we're so caught up on either doing more or spending time trying to be in the moment that we're missing the moment again. I mean, it's like it's a bigger circle than we even know. So I wonder, like, for example, I mean, this class, coming here this morning. Now, I always like to be on time. Okay, that's just kind of my job. Okay, and I figured, where we're going, be it about the Waze says an hour and 20. Waze actually said an hour, and I said, okay, I'll give myself an hour and 20 minutes. And then I realized I'm coming across some of the busiest roads in the world. And then as I'm walking out, can't find my keys. Okay, I get in the car. I realize that my iced coffee here, I left it in the refrigerator. And then by the time I got out the door, I'm 15 minutes behind. And I'm like, how did that happen? I mean, what am I not thinking about?
Did you feel frazzled a little bit?
Yeah. And I was annoyed.
I know.
But then where did that process go? And why is it in the mornings that, I could be Mr. Self-Help and try all these things, and I still hate the mornings, and I still can't get to sleep at night, and I still every once in a while bite my nails. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, well,
and why haven't we broken those patterns that are the most simple patterns to break?
Yeah, I guess we haven't had to yet, so we haven't.
Well, yeah, that's it.
No.
What is it?
So
When it goes from a should to a must?
Yeah, should
we got all the
we should all over ourselves instead of shit. We should all over ourselves.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. But raise your standards. Hey, listen, I could still listen to one of his tapes and still get locked back into it, right?
Yeah, and what's interesting, when you mentioned about your wife painting the wall, how come she doesn't have headphones on? That's the first thing I would think about, because I'm outside, I got my headphones on and stuff, but the reality is you can never be in the moment, whatever you're doing, if it's painting, whatever, if you have shit going into your head.
Right.
So there's got to be
who wants to be in the moment of painting? That's what I'm saying.
But I know, but supposedly the people that know more than us say that is the perfect moment.
Okay.
That's what you're doing at the moment.
No, you're right, but
we're alive in that moment.
What if it's miserable? I mean, you can stand in the rain too.
I know. It's not a perfect system.
No, it's not a perfect system. We all want to go be what we're not. John McEnroe says, "Why do I play guitar? I'm an athlete, and I want to be the tennis star, and the rock star wants to be the movie star." And I think people who do what we do, we want to be the opposite. We want to be the person who can stare at the wall for 3 hours and think of something. And I guess that's something to aspire to, I guess. But that doesn't matter, because now I understand for the first time Audible or all these phones and listening to books on tape is going through the roof. Yeah. Which is great for me because I've been listening for years.
Me too.
But I think they said since 2014, up 30, 40%. Wow. So many more books are going on tape, which I think is a great thing.
That's great. That's absolutely awesome. What would you say is one of your greatest weaknesses?
I think I just was sort of tipping on it, which is the inability to get over things that I've been doing my whole life. Sleep is an interesting thing because having had the type of sleep that I have my whole life, I know it's very much genetic. I mean, my parents sleep bad, my daughter sleeps bad, and not being able to sort of conquer that. I admire people who can get up at 4 a.m. every day, and I think it's the greatest thing in the world. Now, I've done that. I've worked a morning show in television. And I don't care who you are. Everybody I work with in the morning says you never get used to getting up at that hour. But somebody does.
Somebody does.
I mean, it's funny. One of my favorite authors is Robert Caro, who wrote all the Lyndon Johnson books. He wrote the Robert Moses book. And he's still chronicling Johnson. And he said Johnson, in the winter, he would be in at 5:30 a.m. at work, and in the summer it'd be 6:30, and it was because he was a farm boy. And he says, and farm people woke with the light. And I thought, wow, that's a concept. Wouldn't it be great if you could your body clock was like that? I wish I was a morning person. I wish I could stick to habits. I think there's always a little rebellion in me about, I hate doing the same thing every day. I'm not one of those people. Yeah. But life is easier if you are. So why not just be that way?
Well, if it was that easy, we would just write a list of things we have to change and just check them off and they're done.
We wouldn't have this podcast. We wouldn't need this podcast, right?
I guess we're human, and that's all there is to it. We'll tackle things as we need to. It's usually not when we have to. You get the heart attack, you start eating better. You know what I mean? You lose a marriage, maybe you start pondering, well, maybe it has something to do with me, and you start fixing things that needed to be fixed for years. I mean, we usually have to hit the wall or ground zero for us to climb ourselves out. It's a shame, though. Tony Robbins speaks about not having to do that. Let's do it now. Before it gets that bad.
One of the things I think I've done better later in life is, and books like The Secret, The Law of Attraction. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a big family where everything was about arguing, and you had lots of brothers and sisters, and you had to fight for your place, literally. Yeah. Sometimes
figured it. How many kids in your
family? Well, I'm one of 10. Okay, and I'm number 9. So I'm number 9. So I tried a little hard. They used to be an old Avis commercial. We try harder. We're number 3. Well, I was number 9. So it was always very, and to this day, I mean, I'm not joking. We do a softball game on Easter and we do a Thanksgiving game football every year, and we've done it for something like 50 years. I mean, since I was 2 or something, whatever.
The whole family gets together?
The whole family, and the only problem now is...
Yeah, the parking.
Well, the parking, yeah. No, we usually, we always go to a park, and there's usually a parking lot. But... my nieces and nephews have played like D1 sports. Oh. And so they're playing with this guy, and they're also playing, and since like the softball game we played at Easter, my 72-year-old brother-in-law was playing third, and he was actually incredible. He was like a vacuum. But then, you got these guys who are 6'2", 220, and who want to come in spikes high.
Oh my God.
And I'm not joking. And this is the absolute truth. I'm playing left field, which was the dumbest thing you could have ever done with these guys, because my nephews are shooting missiles over. So at some point, my arm was done, okay? So this kid, one of my nephews, Brian, hits one over my head again. I don't know why. I just should have played against the fence. My other nephew, who's 13, is playing left center. This kid, and he's, that age where you're still little, but he's about to grow up, right? Yeah. And he's a good ball player. Yeah. And I pick up the ball, and he turns, and he's standing next to me. He goes, "Give it to me." And I'm like, "What?" And I flip it to him, and the kid throws a strike to third base and nails the guy. I'm like, "How old are you?" And now the humiliation of giving the ball to my nephew. I know. But it just kind of like right then and there, I figured, why am I think I should just coach third base here. At some point.
Go gently into the good night.
That's it would be, And can I play third like my 72-year-old brother-in-law, who played it very well, actually. But anyway.
It's like Judge Consent. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, that's it.
I just topped out. I'm out. I'm gone. I'm leaving.
All right. That's it for me. Be good, everybody.
The George Costanza view of life, I think, just do the opposite. But
was it great, wasn't it?
My name is George. I'm unemployed and I live with my parents.
I'm Victoria. Hi.
For me, doing the opposite would be just you know what? Just get along. Don't get annoyed. Don't fight with people. And I think I've done that, gone in that direction.
Yeah,
because
me too.
If I do it with my kids, I'm like, you know what? The confrontational thing works for some people. Yeah. I don't think it works for 90% of the people.
It never has worked. And it'll get an immediate result, maybe.
But collateral damage.
Collateral damage forever.
And I always say, yesterday we did an event for the school kids in Westchester. It was very cute. They call it the Eddie Awards, which is the Emmy Awards for elementary school and high school. Oh. And they have rooms like this one, incredible. These kids are amazing. And so they all get kind of like Emmy Awards, only they're Eddie Awards for younger kids. Yeah. And the kids get up there and they are just, they're thanking everyone like it's an Academy Award speech. Right. They have it all memorized. And it's just extraordinary to see how at such a young age these kids got it figured out. Mm. And I'm like, geez, I should have known this when I was 12. Be able to and they're.
I have a 12-year-old, so I'm listening to everything you're saying.
Well, and I say to these kids, I always say to them, look, all that stuff your mother told you, be nice, get along with people, don't gossip. No, it's not. And the funny thing is, in the businesses we all work in, there are 6 guys in every business or 6 women in every business, and there are 6 TV stations in New York, and we all know each other. Mm. So if you annoy one person, the other person's going to find out. It's just better to be nice. George Clooney was doing an interview, I think, with when Charlie Rose had his show, and Charlie's like, George, it just must be great. You can work with anyone. You can work with the best of the best. You can work with the most creative. He's like, no. He said, what do you mean no? He goes, I just have one rule. I'll change the word, because even though you can say it on a podcast, he just says, no jerks. I don't want to work with a jerk. And he used the word that begin with an A, so you can imagine. He goes, I got to work with someone for 15 hours. I don't care how creative you are. I don't want to put up with it. And I thought that is so true, right? Yeah. Would you rather have the best of the best who's a jerk, or would you rather have...
If you can control it, yeah. But
well, you can't.
Come across your plate, and what do you do? Do you get aggravated? I mean, it doesn't lead to...
I find the people who last the longest are, in my business and probably every other business, are generally the nicer people who get along with people. Yeah. That's just everyone else. Yeah. Nobody wants to work with them. Look at the great directors. They wind up working with the same guys all the time because they just don't want to put up with it.
Yes. I totally agree with you. What would you say would be a struggle you overcame early on in your career?
I went to Fordham University. I worked at their radio station, WFUV, which is a killer, and it was great. And so Mike Breen, who works for ESPN, and Michael Kay, who's with the Yankees, we were all in the same class. My wife was there too. Yeah, we were all there. And then there were a bunch. She's at Extra, and then there was another woman who works for ET, and in large part because that was a great radio station, a great place to flourish. And then after that, I got an internship at this radio station in New York City, which was kind of an old-fashioned talk, which was like everybody in the world came through there. I mean, when I was a little kid, Mickey Mantle, Joe Namath, every movie star would come in. It was that kind of, they had all these kind of shows. And I worked there for a couple of years. Then I got a job at the NBC Radio Network. And I worked there for a few years, and I was literally bored. And I was like 27 years old. They had fired everybody above me, and so somehow I became the executive producer of the NBC Radio. Okay,
nobody else wanted it.
Well, no, because they fired them all, and they were all 40, and those poor guys. And I get this job, and I literally was bored to death. And I would have 3 TVs in my room, and when the news came on, I'd be like, that's kind of what I want to do. And so what I did was I just started. Writing news on the weekend for TV station in New York. And so I'd have my job during the week, and I worked 7 days a week for a few years. And then I said, finally, and this is the hardest thing to do when you're in your 20s, once you start making a salary, it's hard to say, I want to switch because I'm comfortable, right?
Yeah.
But I did it, which was a good thing. I got over that, and I was like, no, just...
But how did you do that, though?
Because
you have to say goodbye to the consistency of the money, the job, and then go into the unknown.
But I did have a good theory, and I think it's true of all, and it gets harder as you get older. I mean, this really works in your 20s, and I say to everyone in their 20s, or even your teens, depending when you get out of school, whether you get out of high school, you get out of college, and you want to start work. Who cares? You fail at 23, so guess what? You can go back to the job you don't have, or the job you have now, which you didn't want in the first place. So what? The real sin is when you just start that creeping, I'm getting a little more money. Like, for example, in my business, frequently someone will come in, and let's say they're working as a producer, or probably a lower level job. Producer's a big job, but maybe just what we call a desk assistant. And you see they have talent, and you see, hey, that person could be on television. They'll say, well, I'll say to them, what are you doing? And they're like, well, I'd like to go on TV. And I'm like, go on TV. I'm like, well, I think it would be good if I'm like, no, go on TV.
Just do it.
Yeah, and that sounds simple, but it kind of is. Go make a tape. I remember there was another book I remember reading 25 years ago. It was about procrastination. And the guy's line was, make a pile of chips. What do you mean? Well, I want to be a sculptor. Make a pile of chips. Just do something, one step. Even when just to move my story forward, I went from radio to television, and then I was in TV, and then I was like, well, I remember one day I'm sitting there writing a script for someone, and this woman who was an anchor person, she walks in, I give her the script, she reads it, she goes, put the piece together, hey, this is a good piece. I wrote it, I cut it, she voiced it. I'm like, what's wrong with the picture? I'm like, I should just do the whole thing.
Did the bell go off?
Well, no, the bell never really went off. And my brother Dan, you may have met before,
yes,
he said to me...
He's notorious around here.
Yeah, notorious or infamous. No, but Dan said to me, why don't you just be on TV? I'm like, well, I don't know, I got this good job, and why would I? And,
is that right?
And Dan was like, yeah, go on TV.
Really?
And I'm like, well, I was kind of married, and I had 2 kids, and my wife, the good news is she had a great job and still does. She always has.
So you can screw around all you want with.
Well, it's sort of,
and it doesn't matter.
Well, at that time, this was the 3rd time I did it, and I said at that time, going on to TV, I had a good job too. I was working at WNBC, and after I finally told them I'm going to leave and go be on TV at another TV station, they were very nice, and they said, look, Paula Madison, who was a great executive, she said to me, look, you have 90 days to fail, and then your job's still here. Now, I didn't know I'd have that when I was leaving, but she said that.
Cool.
That was really cool. But the point was, I could leave, and if I failed, I could come back. And even let's say she didn't say that, but that made me feel much better. I kind of knew I could. That I could go back. That there would be a job for me. That I would find a job. Yeah. And if I was 20, and by then I was in my 30s. But if I was in my 20s or I wasn't married, and I didn't have 2 kids, my wife didn't have a job, I might not have done that. And if Dan didn't come to me and say, and Dan made the tape with me, and we literally, and Dan also said, in the make a pile of chips thing, get in front of a camera. And I literally took one of the old video cameras, much like one I'm looking at right now, and not at all like the one I'm looking at now. That was really one of the old ones. And I put it in front, and I would stand in front and practice. And I laugh because kids come up to me now, well, how do I get good? Get in front of a camera. I'm like, you don't have to get in front of me. You've got this.
And that's what Greg keeps telling me. He goes, just get in front of the camera.
And it's funny.
And then Dan, your brother, says, no, you don't do that. You're gonna, because he's an actor, and for whatever reason, it interrupts some special pattern.
Dan has he will give you the best advice in the world, though. He always has had great advice, and. I remember he'll call me sometimes. He'll say, I just saw that live shot of yours. It was awful. That was really good. Next time you want to care when you're giving the story. And you know, he was right. And then you're like, you're right. I got into rote. I didn't do what I was supposed to be doing. But the whole idea is, once you start getting in front of the camera, that's the only time you start to feel comfortable. Ernie Anastas, one of the giants in our business and one of the nicest men you will ever meet, and I learned so much from Ernie. Ernie will say to you, don't look at your stuff. Don't go watch yourself on television.
How do you?
Here's his point. All right,
that?
There's two ways to look at this, but his point is, it makes you self-conscious. You know, there was
self-conscious, though.
Right, but there was a time that they would say, and people would still say to me sometimes, because if you've been watching this, I'm shifting all over the place. I drive camera people crazy. Dick,
I got my hand on the camera.
I mean, if I can tell you, in the hour I did television last night, how many times Mark, our director, said, Dick, are you on your mark? Are you on your mark? And literally, there's a mark. And I'm here, and I'm there. And these poor guys, these are robo cameras, and they can't.
Oh.
Yeah. If you watch Spencer Tracy, who some people don't know who he is, which is pretty amazing. Guy won 2 Academy Awards. Yeah. If you watch Spencer Tracy, frequently in the movie, he walks into a room and looks down at his watch. And what he's doing is, he's checking his mark on the floor. Oh. And so every time I hear, are you on your mark? I'm thinking of Spencer Tracy, and I'm like, Spencer Tracy, check your watch. But you learn to glance down, and you come back up. But it's all in the process of no longer feeling the camera on you. Yeah. Young people will show me their stuff, and I'll look at it. And there was this one girl, and she was beautiful, right? And her stuff was amazing. And I'm like, you never did TV? No. Nothing. She looked like she was born to the movies and was acting in the movies. And then I said, do you ever do modeling? Oh, yeah, my whole life.
All right.
Of course. Now, it is different.
It is different,
but
however.
The camera intimidates people in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone says the same thing. You can come up with the best looking people, and they always say, I look terrible on camera. It's not that you look terrible, it's just you're not used to seeing yourself on camera.
Yes, and I've never been in front of the camera at all. I was a videographer my whole life since I was 20 years old. I've always been on.
But that's why Ernie Anastas says, if you watch too much of yourself, you just become self-conscious. People used to tell me, don't talk with your hands. Well, I have to talk with my hands. And then one day I'm watching, at the time, Bill O'Reilly, who for a time was a big-time TV guy, and he is like going like this. And I'm like, well, does anyone care that his hand came up in the frame? No, nobody cared. Does anybody know he has hands? Yeah, they know he has hands, and he talks with his hands. And so
he's not using it to pick his nose while he's talking.
Right.
Okay.
But the point is, as much as you can hold on to yourself, and Dick, stay on your mark. I hear it every day. Yeah, but I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and that's just part of your personality. And if I don't do that, I'm going to be like this. And, and that's what I tell people. At least try to keep yourself,
Yeah. So what's one of the craziest stories you've ever had to cover?
Well, there's a difference between crazy and horrible. I mean, there are obviously a lot of...
Let's not do horrible.
No, we won't do horrible. I don't want to do horrible.
Let's do crazy.
Okay. One of the funniest moments I ever had was outside of Yankee Stadium during the famous 2004 series when the Yanks were up 3-0 and then they lost. Everybody started talking about the curse of the babe. It was getting. This was before the Red Sox had reversed the curse. Mm-hmm. We're standing there, and I'm covering the game as I always do outside. I've covered 1 million baseball games and never seen an inning. And we turn around, and someone says, "There's Jack Nicholson." I'm like, "What? Jack Nicholson? Jack? He's walking in, okay, and he's going in the press entrance." I'm like, let's go. And it's just me and then our photographer. I'm like, we go over to him, and Jack and I said, he's never going to talk. Jack doesn't talk to anyone. He doesn't do interviews with anyone, okay? I said, Jack, what do you think about the game tonight? And he turns and he stops and he starts to talk. And I'm like, Jack is talking. And he goes, well, let me tell you, and a terrible imitation, the immortal babe. I think, and I felt myself floating. I was like, this is out of life moment. No one believes it. Okay, this is the truth. Now, by that point, another guy had come around. But Jack did 30, maybe 40 seconds. But for Jack, that's 2 hours. He goes in. I got the greatest piece of tape in my life. Mic's not on.
Been there, man.
Not kidding.
Been there.
But good news, the guy who came running over on the other side was from, at the time I worked at Fox, another Fox station, Fox in Boston. We took his audio. But I thought, and to this day, one other time I interviewed, when we were in the celebrity realm, I didn't interview. It was like he was coming out of the World Trade Center subway or something, Robert De Niro. And this is funny. We're walking with him again. And he's doing his usual, he never says anything, okay? But he mumbled a few words, like this. And we get to, and Greg will understand this better than anyone, we get to the subway. He's actually going in, not going out. And he's about to go through the turnstile, because who knew that he would be taking the subway? And then my photographer's like he doesn't have it. So I literally said to Robert, I said, Mr. De Niro, you're a director, you understand this. I said, can you do that again? And he's like this guy doesn't talk for anyone. Amateur. No, but he goes he did his De Niro. He went but then I knew the camera was on him. That's a very telling thing. Now, he would have done it again, but he sees a camera and he's not stupid enough to walk away.
He'll look like a...
Yes. Yeah. Now, maybe he doesn't care. I don't know. Yeah. But then he did it again. And that was another... But thank God...
we've all been there.
My camera guy, Rich, he was smart enough to know immediately. Yeah. And I don't think it was his fault. I think there was just a problem. Yeah. The other thing I thought, one of the coolest things I've ever done, I got to see a liftoff from Cape Canaveral, which I was a space guy when I was a kid, the Apollo and everything. And I always wanted to see one, and I saw a SpaceX liftoff. Oh, cool. Which was, and it's funny, you always get the same thing from the so-called old-timers. We get there and they're like, oh, SpaceX, huh? You ever see a shuttle liftoff? I'm like, no. Shuttle, that's something. Okay, so, yeah, right. No, but so they were all saying the same thing. Yeah. And these guys, I'm not kidding, they are on the same, they have this little box of a building. And if you look at the old pictures from the old Mercury, Gemini, Gemini, it's the same little building, and they all get on top of this little box, and it's tiny. It's smaller than this room. So cool. And so when I heard from the 12th person, have you seen a shuttle? By the time we go see the liftoff, I'm going to be like, this is going to be a joke. Yeah. And it was 3 a.m. Yeah. So it was, I'm telling you, this was just compared to, it was not a big thing, but the place shook, the building shook. I was like, holy, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Okay. We go inside. There's another old timer I haven't seen. I'm like, here we go. I was like, that was amazing. He looks at me, I'm like, okay, yeah, I know you saw 4 shuttles. No, you know what he says to me? You ever see a Saturn V take off? I'm like, come on. And Saturn V is the biggest rocket that we ever launched, ever, which was sent to the moon. But I'm like, okay, I'm done. I just saw a bottle rocket. That's what I saw. I mean, have you ever seen a Saturn V?
Shoot, that's so funny.
Yeah, it was good. But that was one of the cooler things. Yeah. And then it's great when you work with really good people. If you go to cover a hurricane or a twister or something like that, these guys know where to put you, because they'll tell you, guess what? The twister goes from, I always get this reversed, southeast to north or northeast to south, so don't ever stand on that side. No, because it's going to come this.
You better know your direction.
And these guys, I had a guy, fantastic photographer, he worked in Kansas, and he said when he was growing up, and apparently they all did this, they would go and when they were 18 or 19, this was dumb things you did as a young photographer, chain yourself to a fence when the twister's coming. That's a great idea, right? Except if it turns. And he said it turned. Wow. But he somehow, it turned and then turned away from him. But he said that's what dumb things you do when you're 18 and you want to save the world or something.
Yeah. Have you ever been into goal setting?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny. We talked about Brian Tracy goals.
Do you do it every year? Do you do it? Is it one of those things you do every single year at a certain time?
Well, yeah. I always do it at... I always do it on the 31st, and I have them all written down and that's the other thing. I've always been a journal type person. Me too. Write things down. Brian Tracy is always not goals every year, every month, every day. Yes, and that's okay. I've tried that. Yeah. And it's kind of weird writing the same damn goal down every single day. It's kind of strange. Yeah. But if I had to say of the self-improvement thing,
Yeah.
that's probably 001.
Yeah,
I mean, really is.
definitely.
It's
I
the
couldn't
only
agree more.
thing.
I
It
couldn't
may
agree
be the
more.
only thing.
Everyone has goals, but some seem to accomplish far more than others. That's because people who accomplish goals at a higher rate than the average person are those who use a systematic, proven method of goal setting and goal attainment.
Your brother Dan is in a mastermind group with Greg. And,
Yeah, what is that, by the way? What is a mastermind group?
It's even better than writing your goal down every day.
What is it?
Every week you get together. Napoleon Hill, back in Napoleon Hill, he
Oh, it's Napoleon Hill?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
He
yeah.
studied wealth and...
Right, yeah, no. I listened to his book. You talk about the voice,
Go Rich.
the funniest
Oh,
voice.
I know. Back then, you didn't have to have anything.
And then we
But he had the
talk
material
like, yes, it's like.
Now let me give you a list of the more important things over which you will have to exercise self-discipline before you can embrace and use the great master key to riches.
Oh, that just reminds me of one of my other funniest moments of all time. I was that voice, you know, the Napoleon Hill voice,
yes,
that it sounds like, yeah, right. Like, so I am at a radio station.
Greg talks like that.
Yeah, Greg he hasn't said a word though. He's coming in. He's got his eyes.
Right.
I'm at a radio station. I'm about 24, okay, in New York, okay, and they have a show that goes on at 7 p.m. and my shift is like till 8. But everyone goes home at 6, so you have to buzz yourself in. You have to buzz whoever comes in. But there's a 7 o'clock show and there's a guest, and if they don't hit the buzzer right, they're standing out there, okay. So I'm doing 3 jobs. I'm editing tapes. I'm running the board, whatever. And all of a sudden, I'm standing and I look up, and there's this guy walking down the hall. He goes, "Excuse me, young man," and he's got and I'm like,
Does he have a cigar sticking out of his mouth?
I'm like, it's FDR. No, I'm not kidding. I'm like, FDR has come from the dead. It's a ghost, and I'm like, I'm sorry. And I get this chill, like this is really creepy because it sounds like FDR. It looks like FDR. I'm Elliot Roosevelt. I'm here for It was his son, who was at that point like in his second. Now I said Elliot. It could have been James. There was 2 of them. Elliot and James. Trying to remember which one it was, but he was either 70 or something. So he looked like his father. Yeah. He sounded like his father, and his name was Roosevelt. And then I was like, oh. I'm sorry, that was my diversion from Napoleon Hill's voice.
I do it constantly.
Yeah.
A mastermind group is where a group of people get together either in a... We use Zoom conferencing, which is, video conferencing. Or I used to have ones that people would come here.
So what?
You set certain rules and certain conditions. It's a time factor. Each person gets, let's say, 15 minutes to discuss their... It could be on business, could be losing weight, could be anything. Ours is business.
So it could be, it's like what Weight Watchers does or people like that.
It could be. Well, it's different. It's different. This is something...
I'm just saying the concept.
The concept is, but there's certain conditions in order to stay in the group, which means you have to move forward. You have to set your goals each week towards your master goal, and you have to take those steps or you're out. So it's all about action. It's not about just talking about it, because we could talk and read and talk. And
no, I know, and that is the problem with us, because this is what we do.
That's what a mastermind group does. It ties it all together, and you feel as though you don't want to be the only one not moving the ball forward.
But, I mean, now, is it a pay-in group? I mean, do you have a monthly
this particular
fee?
One is not. This particular.
There are ones that are.
Yes.
And is there a leader of the group, or is it just all you guys?
Moderator.
And
I'm the
what, they
moderator.
keep you from fighting? Or what? You moderating?
Well, you moderate the time and how much time each person gets.
Oh, I
staying
see.
on course.
I see.
And ending at around the same time each time. And so what happens is you would say, oh, listen, I'm having this challenge. I can't sleep.
Right.
I haven't been able to sleep for years. It's probably just genetic. And then,
right.
We actually did a whole session on another guy in our group. We did a video on sleeping because he had a lot of sleeping problems. So we had a dialogue for an hour on different things to do, how to sleep. So anyway, you get together and everybody shares their ideas. But at the same time, you have to take action or you're out.
And then what, do you got to prove that you took action?
Well, no, and it's not that. It's not that. But you'll know if someone's taking action or not, or if they're deflecting.
And how long does the mastermind class last?
It's about an hour and a half.
No, I mean in over time.
It should be for an eternity. It should be for the rest of your life. It could be even multiple groups, depending on what the subject matter is. It is the best way to keep you on track and tuned. You could wake up 10 years later and having accomplished nothing. I would not be doing this right now if it wasn't for our mastermind group. There's 4 of us in it.
Really? Well, it does drive me crazy that I look at my annual goals and I see the same two that are still get your sleep straightened out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been on my list for 20 years, and it's never been solved.
I'll talk to you about a little bit that I...
Well, you'll get the solutions. I mean, the problem is when you do what we do, which is go deep into all this stuff, I've probably read everyone, and then my problem is I don't follow the rules, which is like look what I'm having. I've got my Starbucks here, and
so you already know.
Although it's 2 in the afternoon, though, I can get away with it. I won't be going to bed for a while. We hope.
Yeah. Tell us something about you that nobody knows.
You mean like a fun fact?
No, it could be a fun fact.
That's
something that nobody knows.
Steve, you're in Barbara Walters territory here.
I know.
If you had to name a
until
tree,
she started The View. After that,
I mean, you really. Let's be honest here.
I hate that show. Don't get me started on The View.
Okay, I'm just saying.
You already know my political position is right now.
Well, I
promise not to go there.
Oh, good. Okay, good. We didn't. In terms of, do you really think in a billion years I would tell anybody something that nobody else knew on this show? With all due respect.
People slip, man.
No, I don't. You see, here's the thing.
Give me a fun fact.
That's an interesting point you make. Here's a fun fact about life. There was a time when you could walk down the street and talk to anyone. Do you remember? You remember John Gotti? I'm sure.
I did a video for him.
Time out.
Very intimate details of his life.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why are we even talking about anything else?
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
It was incredible.
We got to hear this.
It was incredible.
So you knew Gotti, he did the walk talk.
I never met him, but I did a video for him.
You did a video for him?
Video montage with newspaper clippings.
I hope you didn't screw it up.
No, it was very...
What?
A guy showed up here with stuff, and he goes, you cannot make a copy, you cannot talk about... I mean, he didn't talk about it. You cannot make a copy, cannot be distributed. It was personal stuff.
Some guy just showed up.
Yeah, when John Gotti was being arraigned at the
Johnny showed up with the dark glasses and the hat.
I was a friend. It was like a middleman that I knew in the video business.
You're kidding me.
And I saw a whole bunch of his photos, his family growing up, and people, newspaper clippings of people disappearing, and the thing is something that is his son had died.
Yeah, no, I know he was hit by the car.
So a whole bunch of stuff, maybe about over 100
and allegedly
items.
whacked the next door neighbor. Yeah,
I never really knew what happened with that stuff. I was never into the news, but this just showed up, and I had to put together with music and video clips and stuff like that. It was fascinating. And
do you ever wonder why you got picked by?
Yes, because it was a friend of mine who lived in Howard Beach and knew the Gotti family, and he trusted me.
Well, that's the thing. It's do you trust me or do you not?
I never made a copy. I never showed it to anybody. It was just one of those things where, wow, I knew a little bit about him. I knew things were happening to him, and what they said about him and stuff. But it's very fascinating to see. I mean, I saw baby pictures of his entire family. Growing up, all the events that they went to, and it was.
Hey, look, if you're in our business, John Gotti is one of those incredible figures that we covered for ill. Sure. There's good and for ill. Yeah. But the reason why I mentioned Gotti was because you remember the Gotti walk talk, which means he wouldn't, when he thought the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club was bugged, he would go for the walk. But then the FBI came up with those aimed listening devices. But now the way we treat our lives, people who are on television, people follow you around with this, and they're constantly rolling on you. Well, I'm used to it.
Yeah, it's a little unsettling, isn't it?
Well, what it makes you be is it makes you just always be on.
Doesn't it? Because I've noticed the same thing. I say to my wife all the time, I always assume, there's a video camera up there. Every room in my house has it, and it's had it for 20-something years. Inside, not the bedrooms, the main room, and outside. I'm in the video business. I have it in my car. I have it,
Right.
But it's everywhere now.
Well, Alexa even, it's a laugh.
I mean, come on.
I mean,
such a bitch.
Yeah, he was just talking to me last night. I said to my wife something. Do you want to hear the song Something? That's exactly what it was. No, so I've reached the point where, to me, and we're not perfect at it. None of us are. For the most part, we try to always be on. Mm. And I know that sounds very rigid, but once you just do it, once you start doing it, like using curse words, I almost try never to. Now, maybe in the past we all did, but I try never to, because it's just, you don't want it to come out at the wrong time. So you just try to make it easy. Right. And do you like it? Well, I guess I could go back and then you could relax more. Yeah. But this stuff has just changed everything.
It's changed everything. And I tell my wife this all the time. I just always assume I'm being recorded.
Exactly.
So, and it does keep you in line. You almost expect, I say, listen, by the way, there's a red light camera on every corner, let's say. I mean, whether you like it or not, it keeps you in a certain line.
I always love when people say, "Oh, we can't have these cameras because cameras are everywhere. I mean, they're on the street.
You don't even know where most of the cameras are.
Well, I mean,
who's hitting us up with cameras?
I covered some stories, and you talk to detectives, and what they do is like now, everybody talks about local news. All we do is we have surveillance videos, but these detectives, they go block to block to block. Let's say there's a shooting incident in a park playground, as there was this week, a horrible incident. They will literally go blocks and trace the steps of this guy. And the Times did a great piece on this one particular murder in a park in the Soundview section of the Bronx, I believe. I think the 40th Precinct. It was an amazing piece. They did a whole year on all the murders in the 40th Precinct. And they literally, this shooting happened on a Sunday, and I think Monday was a holiday. And normally, all the businesses are open, and they can go to the businesses who have all the cameras. All the businesses were closed on Monday, so they couldn't get the trace, and this was one of the problems with the murder. But there was a case 3 or 4 years ago, I think Scalia wrote the decision, was that they took a GPS and put it under the bumper. And the police defense was, look, the car is in a public place. And they followed this guy. It was a drug bust. Ultimately, Scalia wrote the decision, threw it out, and said that was illegal search and seizure. There was another case about a marijuana growing thing in a house, and what happened was they used a heat-seeking device on the house to feel the heat, and therefore determine, because everybody could smell the marijuana, so they knew it was there. But they couldn't get a warrant for whatever reason, or they didn't get a warrant, one or the other. And I believe that one, I got to remember, I think they believed that was also illegal search and seizure.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Is there anything else you'd like to mention?
That's funny. That's a classic question that we always use. In television, my last question is always, Greg has probably heard it a million times, is there anything I forgot to ask you that you wanted to mention? And we always get some of the best lines. Oh yeah, well I actually did see the murderer. Oh, you did? Yeah. I saw the helicopter fall. Oh, you did? Yeah, you
shot that guy.
Yeah, it was me. No, I mean, Greg knows this. I mean, you get the it's like, really? Or even better, and Greg, a photographer, knows the worst is when, okay, yeah, Greg, we got everything? You got the 2-shot? Everything? Okay, good, great. Listen, thanks a lot. Yeah, okay. Well, I spent my years as a serial killer, and you didn't mention that. Can we get that? Oh, yeah, sure, I'll talk about it. And then, Greg, could you come back? He's going to confess to being a serial killer. No, and it's literally, now Greg takes his camera, and you're like, what did you think that wasn't important to the whole story? Okay, I mean, it's hysterical. I mean, it's like, and how many times has that happened? And then you go, and then it's like,
what you're gonna get if you don't ask for it. I mean, this is a great lesson in life. If you don't ask, you'll never get.
And then there's the other. Larry King actually, and everybody makes a joke about Larry King, but this guy was on top of his game for a lot of years. He had the #1 cable show. He had the radio show before that. He tells a story when he was doing his book tour. I think he was at some Good Morning Seattle or something. And he said that he could tell that the interviewer was just reading her list of questions and not paying attention to his answers. He goes, oh, well, that was when I was I was the assassin for the CIA for a couple of years, just a couple of years. She goes, oh, that's interesting. So when is the book coming out? And now, does he stretch the story? No. But is he right that that's what people do? And the other thing he always says, Larry has had some great stuff, and he always says, always ask why. Because if you get if someone's giving you a one-word answer, just say why. Great. Yeah, no, that's Larry, and Larry, he's got a podcast too, or he was doing one as of a few months ago with his wife.
What other profession would you like to attempt if you were to stretch into something different?
Profession-wise, I would have probably really enjoyed being in the legal profession, and then we always talk about it in our businesses. So much of what we do is like police work. We sit around for hours and do nothing. And then we go like lunatics for 30 minutes to get on, the news. Right, you're on or off. And that's what cops do. Yeah. And they sit around observing people all day long. Yeah. And so our professions are very similar. And a lot of guys I've worked with, I always thought would make really good detectives because they just notice things. They see things. Yeah, so we have similar skill sets there. But me, I probably would have enjoyed the law. I probably would, like I said, of course, yeah, everybody would like to be the Supreme Court justice. And because if you want to be brilliant and you went to Harvard, you're probably fine. But yeah, I never cease to be fascinated with that. And I'm a big sports fan too, so I guess I could have gone to that profession too. Reagan supposedly said that at his inaugural in 1980, he wore the same tux that he wore, I think, in 1940. Okay? That's what the story, and I heard the story over and over again. Now, I don't have our brain room of fact checkers here, but that's the story. And essentially, if you look at the guy, he kind of never gained any weight. So I always thought that was a great idea. So never have to have your suits let out. And if you did that, you'd always stay in shape. But so that's my rule, and that's kind of like, okay, you just got to stay in shape, and it's not fun when you get old and everything starts to break down.
Well,
so
gravity and its age, and
it's all those things, yeah.
Neuroses, and
but
everything adds up over years.
Yeah, next it'll be the facelift.
Yeah, I know.
The funny thing is, now women go through that, and they always say men don't. But now I see guys do that too. So
I think we'll end on that, Mark.
All right. Before I get that's not my secret. As you can see, the lines are all here, and my eyebrows move. So there's proof. Anyway,
Dick Brennan, it's been a pleasure.
Pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks for taking the trip.
All right.
Thanks.